Welcome to the WarriorHER Podcast, a show dedicated to those looking to excel in business, life, and family. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Nikki, and we're sharing the stories of remarkable women making their mark on the world, sharing the valuable lessons they've learned and the wisdom they've gained along the way.
'Cause even when I lose, I'm winning. 'Cause even when I lose, I'm winning. 'Cause even when I lose, I'm winning. 'Cause even when I lose, I don't ever take it now. I don't ever take it now. I don't ever take it now. I don't ever take it now.
Welcome to the WarriorHER Podcast, where we celebrate the strength, resilience, and ingenuity of women from all walks of life. Today, we're thrilled to have with us Kristen V.Carter, an award-winning executive producer, entrepreneur, and speaker hailing from Newark, New Jersey.
Kristen's work spans across various facets of entertainment, industry, community empowerment. In 2022, she served as an executive producer for the Discovery Plus 4-part documentary series profiled The Black Man, a groundbreaking series that received several recognition from the Television Academy for its social justice content. So Kristen show-ran and executive produced the PBS music celebration called Gospel Live, which I love personally, presented by Henry Louis Gates Jr. And co-hosted by the Erica Campbell and Henry Louis Gates.
Beyond her impressive entertainment career, Kristen is dedicated to mentorship and empowering others through her inspirational brand, Trust Your Magic. This brand not only reinforces the power of honoring one's gifts and talents, but also includes an interactive workshop for emerging entrepreneurs. Her Trust Your Magic podcast, which features stories of individuals taking leaps of faith, is now in its second season. Wow. So with all of that, welcome officially to the WarriorHER Podcast.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here.
I think it's so, every time we do these like intros for anybody, I'm always so impressed at all of the wonderful things you're doing.
And have accomplished already.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
let's kind of start with some challenges, right? What are some of the challenges that you have faced as a Black woman, specifically in the entertainment industry?
So I've been in the industry now 2 decades. And so I feel like I have faced a little bit of it all, from racism, sexism, ageism. I've been the youngest in my field, or the youngest in my roles, for quite some time. And at this point, no one asks you your age or anything like that. But I think it's just an assumption that I'm a little bit younger than everyone. And so I think just coming up as my first role was a head writer position at 21, and even now as a showrunner and executive producer, I'm about 10 to 15 years younger than most of my counterparts. And so I feel like I face a lot in terms of, well, you don't know, or what are you doing here? Or, for example, reintroducing myself as an executive producer to people who may have known me through the years in different titles and roles and things like that. So I take it all in stride and grace, and I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful to, build community in the way that I'm able to. So I would say those are the first few that just come to mind in terms of the challenges, for sure.
So what did you do, to that point, to overcome them? So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. I hear you with the challenges as they come up. So like I said, you do look young, to be honest, and to their point, they're like, oh man, who's this 15-year-old coming in here?
Right.
But when you say you have 10, 15 years of experience, and you've done all these wonderful things and have these accolades, how do you overcome, those second guesses by your peers?
Yeah, I think I just face them head on. So I acknowledge, sometimes you got to acknowledge the elephant in the room to continue to keep moving. So for example, sometimes I have one-on-ones with counterparts to just say, hey, this is my background. I'm really excited to be here. And also here's how I'm going to move this project forward. So I address the elephant in the room without saying anything about my age or where I'm from or anything like that. I just go through it head on. And then also I just try to be solution oriented at all times. And that means thinking ahead, thinking outside the box, always being prepared so that I feel comfortable. It doesn't matter what someone else thinks, but I feel comfortable being in rooms where other people may have other experience. It's easy to be intimidated and to say, oh, well, am I supposed to be here? Absolutely, I'm supposed to be here. And so I need to make sure that I always arm myself with, not only great self-esteem, but also great tools and skills and things like that, so that I can get into every meeting and be articulate and excited and feel comfortable with what I'm sharing.
Love that. Love that. So let's talk about Profile, the Black Man. That's a powerful documentary series. So what motivated you to take on that project, and what impact do you hope that it has had on society in general?
Sure. So when Profile the Black Man came to me, it's executive produced by Trell Thomas, who created the project, and then also Tina Knowles. And so when that project came to me, I wanted to celebrate Black men. The show is all about debunking stereotypes that Black men face in America. And I was really moved that I was one of the few Black women on the project to be able to helm that, address it, and also honor our men in a particular way. So every single episode is about debunking a particular stereotype. So for example, episode 1 was about Black men are dangerous. We debunked that by talking about the things that have happened systemically in terms of police brutality and things like that, that is really, not fair, and talked about, the ways that maybe Black men are targeted versus other men who are not of color, that they're not targeted in the same ways. And so we were able to go through history and pull out the facts. So the thing I loved about the project was that we did a historical dive, but then we also had commentary by celebrities and non-celebrities, journalists and things of that nature, who were able to really talk about the different scenarios that have happened in America, why they happened and why they were not right. And then be able to talk to Black men who have been stereotyped and then how they overcame those stereotypes. So to me, anytime you're working on a first season project, there's the show that was pitched and then the show that makes air. Just in terms of formatting, sometimes you have to change some things. So I was really honored that as executive producer for the project, my goal was just to make sure that the show was entertaining, educational, but also really celebrated and saluted Black men.
I love that. Love that so much.
Wow. So you've been recognized for producing content that addresses social justice issues. How do you balance between storytelling and activism in your projects?
That's a great question. I think specifically with Profiled, and there's a few other projects that I'm thinking of right now, I often have to pull back and think of things as a viewer. So there's one thing of wanting to make sure that America and anybody watching is educated, but there's also making sure that it's not boring, right? So I have to pull back the layers and say to myself, all right, what's interesting here? How can I tell this story in a way that's going to inspire different generations? So if a teenager is watching, or a college student is watching, or even an elder beyond 70 years old, I want to make sure my facts are straight, but also that it's interesting enough to get the generations moving. So I would say, for me, it's all about just making sure that it's compelling across the board. You never want to spoon feed information and folks are like sighing and yawning and things like that, or like, oh, we know. You got to think about what are the ways that you can tell a story a little bit differently. And so I always make sure that I come from it for that lens, no matter if it's social impact content or anything else. I always go, is this interesting? Would I watch this? Does this keep me up? And what are the ways that I can continue to elevate the project so that, all viewers will, tune in?
I think that's important to kind of think of your projects from the viewership standpoint. I think that's like how it is in entrepreneurship as well. Like, we're creating our products with our audience in mind, or we like to say the people who will be purchasing from us, they're helping us build together. So if they're not engaged with it, if they're not interested, then it'll fall flat in the end, and obviously you taking that into account has been really important. And so that's why you have these accolades and recognition in the first place.
It's been really, really important. I would say the two things that are most important to me are making sure that all content is engaging, and also that it is, good-hearted. I'm not one of those people that does projects that are messy and things like that. That's just
Yeah.
not my brand. It doesn't speak to me. So for me, it's all about having heartwarming projects and content, and then also making sure that my team feels good. So a lot of times when you're on really stressful projects, people forget, how to really build a team. For me as an executive producer, it is important that each and every producer walks away feeling like they learned something, but also feeling like they were heard and respected and valued. And that is not encouraged enough in our field, or any fields for that matter. So for me, that's really, really important for sure.
That's a good point. And that kind of segues into my next
Wait,
question.
I actually want to go back a little bit.
Oh,
before we get
okay.
to the next question. I have like a kind of off the cuff question.
Okay.
So people who are not in entertainment, right, who don't know, maybe there's somebody listening that they're interested in, they want to be an executive producer, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, like, can you kind of define like what an executive producer does first?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So as an executive producer, I'm responsible for all facets of production. So that's pre-production, that's actual production, and then post. So for example, let's take, for example, your podcast. Let's say we turned it into a show. So the conversations that I would have with both of you about what you would want viewers to see, the format, how the show moves, the audience, the people that you interview, those types of things, that's called pre-production. And then production would be something like this, where you guys would start to roll cameras. Maybe we're following behind the scenes or a day in the life of how you all get prepared and travel from different cities and things like that. Maybe we follow that. So your show would embody that. And then post-production would be, making sure that the show is crisp and clean, and it's in the edit. We have music, we have coloring, we fix anything that we need. Also, I would say from there, it's also marketing. So beyond just what platform your show is going to be on, are we going to get sponsors? Are we going to do a promo tour? Where else is this project going to live? And then where are you all going to promote it? And so it's also, executive producing is all about packaging your project from beginning to end. So I say with certain projects, so with Profile the Black Man, which is a documentary series, I had fewer teams. So I would say I oversaw posts for that particular show. But then for Gospel Live that I just did, I oversaw 15 departments because it was a live music special. So very different. It depends on your format, very different in terms of how many people you're leading and guiding. I'll also say as an executive producer, it's interesting. I've worn so many hats to get to this part. So I told you that I started off head writing at 21. So now I oversee the writer and I understand, what their needs are. I think as an executive producer, it sort of encompasses every role. So, I've done writing, I've been an associate producer, segment producer, field producer, development producer, consultant, all those things, post producer, all of those things, to then be able to manage people and make sure that I'm clear about what's needed for those other roles. So I think it's really important to have done a lot of those roles so you can speak to it. Sometimes people get executive producer role, they have no idea what it to like actually produce the show. So I'm really grateful that I've been able to climb up the ranks and have all those positions to then educate and inform and make sure like those roles are moving forward and those people are moving forward.
I love that. You have the skin in the game, in other words, to have the experience you have.
And then it's also, sorry to cut you off, it's also really my job now is being the liaison between networks and production companies. So it's network, production company, and then my team. So I'm instructing my team creatively, but then I'm also making sure that we are hitting what the network, like why the network bought the show. And then the production company, it's like keeping the essence of the show, even with the network notes. So I'm the middleman or middlewoman to make sure that everybody is satisfied with the end result.
Love that.
And is it are you then responsible for building out that team? Like they hire you and then you build out the team.
And you delegate out those.
Yeah. So a lot of times, sometimes I'll work with production companies and they already have some people in mind, and then I will fill the rest of the team. And then there's other projects where I fill the entire team. So a lot of times when I interview for projects, I'm like, when I interview for projects, I often say, well, here's my preferred staff list, and I'm able to share their resumes and explain why I feel like they're great for the job. and things like that, so that we can fill all the spots and all the roles. And also we get people who know the format, either know the format or know the subject matter. So for me, like I said, I'm never doing shows that are random. All the shows that I have worked on are because I have a passion for what we're speaking about. It's not just because it's television, but it's because it's a topic that I feel really passionate about.
Yeah, and it sounds like you kind of built your team and vetted them already, and kind of know that you guys work well together and everybody's aligned.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Speaking to that, can you walk us through your experience as a showrunner for Gospel Live? Like, how was that?
It was amazing.
What unique challenges come up with those different types of shows that you've done in production?
So I've worked in a number of formats through the years. So that is music specials, competition, award shows, documentary, docuseries. I've pretty much run the gamut. And so this particular show was the very first time that I executive produced a music special, even though I worked in music specials for a long time. So I was really, really thrilled because it brought me back to my roots of music programming. I started out my career at 106 and Park, interning at 106 and Park in Rap City.
Oh, wow.
And then that's what I grew up for every day after school. Okay, like as soon as I get home. Okay,
exactly. So just being able to go back to my love of music, I was really, really excited about. And so for that particular show, the show is actually a promotional series or promotional special rather, for Gospel, which is a 4-part documentary series that was executive produced by Henry Louis Gates. So our show was like the promotion and the celebration, like a couple days before the documentary series ran. So for me, I knew, so again, when you talk about production company and network, I knew that the production company really wanted to make sure that we celebrated and honored this documentary series, but also took the music to the next level. So we had a lot of gospel and R&B greats singing gospel songs that they grew up loving, or performing a rendition of an R&B song in a gospel way. So for example, like Latasha, formerly of Escape. Well, I'm not sure what's going on with them. So I would say Latasha of Escape did Who Can I Run To, but did the gospel version of Who Can I Run To. But then when you had Anthony Hamilton and the Hamiltones did Something About the Name Jesus, that's a song that they love to perform. So it was an honor and a privilege. I call that show the gift that keeps on giving. I loved that experience, and it really reignited the reason why I do production. It was such a rare gem because that show also was being produced during the strike. So a lot of my friends who have moved on to scripted but started out in music programming, they were able to work with me on the show because nobody was working, so I was able to pull a lot of folks that I respect and love on the project. I was able to work with my pastor, and it was a phenomenal experience. It was like the spirit was in the room. And so I think even folks were like, what? I think folks were like, oh my gosh, that was so special. I'm like, yeah, because we were really praising and worshiping for real. So that means a whole lot to me.
Definitely a lot of greats. I know I grew up in the church my whole life. So
yeah.
I was touched.
Good. Thank you. Sure. No, I really appreciated anyone that's watched the show. It was really a great opportunity because we were able to spotlight gospel songs that may not get performed often, and also see artists in a different light. So for John Legend to be a part of the project, Erica Campbell, and then we were able to showcase Lena Bird Miles, who was a newer artist, but she tore the house down and was just so gracious. So the whole experience from beginning to end, working on that show, and then PBS, they did, all networks do a promotional run, but I was so excited for the project. I asked if I could do a regional church tour where I literally went from church to church, screening the show and also having a Q&A talk back. And so they were just really moved and approved me to do it. And so for me to be able to go out and promote the show was amazing, so affirming. So definitely one of my proudest projects for sure.
That actually It was going to be if there's a specific project that stands out to you the
Sound
most.
like-
Yeah, but that sounds like it might be that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say for currently, I'll definitely say Gospel Live for all the reasons that I just mentioned. It pulls together so many things personally and professionally that give me a lot of joy, and also reignited me during a time where, you know, it is really sometimes production can be really frustrating. And so I feel like gospel was everything that you would want it to be. So I'm not faking, like nobody was faking when we were producing the show. We all were having a great time.
Loving
And I
it.
think that comes through the show. Like when I personally watch the show, all the love and the joy like comes through the screen. And that's something I'm really, really proud of. I think growing up or coming through the ranks, America's Best Dance Crew was the show that I felt like changed my career in a very specific way. So in 2013, I was 2 years into my time in LA. And at that time, I was a field producer, which means that you go out and you
I
direct.
love that show.
Like I loved America's Best Dance Crew. So I did all of the intro packages for 2 of the crews. So yeah. So for example, like if y'all were leading, Super Crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had a crew from where I'm from DC, and they kind of showcased it, like what we call beating your feet. And that was like the first time that was seen like in America, you know.
Yes.
But it was local to our region, and I was so excited that was like being showcased on television. So I love that show.
Yeah. So I did the intro packages for 2 of the 10 crews. So for example, if you guys were a crew, was like, oh, you know, I'm Courtney and Nikki, and we're from such and such and such, and you would explain your story and why you were part of the show. And so for me to be able to work with the crews in that way, one of our crews called Most Wanted Crew, they are all educators. And so I loved being able to include their kids, like their students in their story and things like that. But long story short, that particular show, I was able to meet one of the fellow producers who became my director of photography for my short film and for a lot of my independent projects. So had I not been a part of America's Best Dance Crew, 1, I wouldn't have learned how to direct. 2, I would not have moved on to write and direct a short film that did very well on the circuit for a year and a half, the film circuit. So that show, I would say, was also like really, really moving for me as well.
That is so cool. And it's also one of the you know, a testament to like nothing is like not nothing. What am I trying to say? Like every experience is used for something.
God will use it all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you just never know how.
Yeah.
You know, later on down the line. So he sits high, looks low, and knows everything.
Yes.
It all counts, you know, even the times that are difficult. And so I love that. And it's so cool to kind of have that attachment to something that, you know, I as a young person loved and watched. So that's really cool and exciting.
Yeah, we're gonna shift a little bit to talk about Trust Your Magic. So it is an inspiring initiative, but I want to know what inspired you to create this brand, and what do you hope that participants take away from your workshops?
Okay, well, I started Trust Your Magic in 2016, and actually it came from a dream. So at the time, long story, I was working on a stationery brand with a completely different name, title, things like that. And I ended up having a dream about the affirmation, Trust Your Magic. And then I woke up and I knew the colors. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be more than stationery. And so it's a lifestyle brand to really affirm our gifts and talents and to trust the innate abilities that we have. So that was created in 2016. I started a t-shirt line at that point. I wasn't yet ready to do workshops. I didn't even realize at the time that Trust Your Magic wasn't just an affirmation that was coming through me, but it was an affirmation to me as well in terms of trusting my own magic and doing what I'm called to do. So Trust Your Magic has expanded beyond merchandise and t-shirts and things like that. And now I do workshops. I have my podcast, speaking, and then also I'm working on a book as well. So it's definitely a brand that I'm excited about, that is, again, like very organically me. It's like what I talk about all the time with friends, peers, and also clients as well. Like, we get to trust that we are enough, that we have everything that we need to expand our lives and to have joy and to be fulfilled. And I'm excited that as I continue to grow and learn, like Trust Your Magic continues to grow and learn, because Trust Your Magic is me. So my workshops, I've been doing workshops since 2018. And they've been all around becoming a 6-figure independent contractor and also entrepreneur. A lot of times people get into production or even other fields and they wonder, like, how do I go from gigging to actually having a career? And for me, that has been something that has come very naturally by doing certain exercises, really doing reflections and things like that. And so I've been able to put that all together into my workshop. So I'm excited for y'all to check it out. And
we are excited too.
Really excited for it to continue to grow as well.
Yes, love it. I love what that's all about. You know, a lot of those things that you mentioned aligned with what we, are passionate about as well. So hence the WarriorHER Podcast. But speaking of podcasts, your podcast features guests who have taken significant leaps of faith themselves. What has been one of the most inspiring stories that you can recall from your show?
Sure. I would say during season 1, I had a writer named Nick Brooks. He's actually a dear friend of mine, but he's a filmmaker / lyricist / author. And so to hear his story, but also to hear the synergy and how our childhoods were very similar. Like when I was coming up, I always wrote in journals and I wrote songs and things like that. And he was the same way. So when I think about hopefully young people and also peers can hear how we can have these lucrative careers, but those things start from a mustard seed at like 5 and 6 years old. So he talked about like writing raps as a very young person, writing poems, curriculum, things of that nature, and also having a very winding road. So it wasn't like he had one path to becoming, a very acclaimed author at this point. It's all of these sort of wiggles and jiggles through life to get to where he is now. And so for me, that was really very, very inspiring and also hilarious because he was very honest. I think a lot of people kind of shy away. A lot of people shy away from really telling their stories. And I feel like he was very honest. Like, Kristen, I didn't know what I was doing, but all of those paths led to where he is now, which is being, a very successful author, husband, and father. And he's someone that I'm like, oh man, I'm so excited that he was able to tell his story, on my podcast.
That sounds wonderful.
I definitely resonate with that because it was like the first time I met Sherelle and she was telling me all these different things about how, and I was like, I feel like I'm talking to myself and I feel so seen. And because I have had very much a very winding road. Like I was a teen mom and then, I got married very young and did this whole, I've done a lot of different things too. And if you would have told me I've been here now, I mean,
wouldn't have called it, right?
Would have never imagined, we would be able to do like really things that we love, right? That I love. Like I love this. I used to love Oprah. Like I'm not used to, I'm obsessed with Oprah.
Yes.
Since I was a little girl, I always loved storytelling. I never knew that would turn into this, but I also, as somebody who never really felt like they had their own, like I wasn't given necessarily opportunities, right? So I had to kind of create them. And that's essentially how this started, was no one's going to just like give me a show, but I can just create my own. So forget it. Like,
Thank goodness for technology. We can do it ourselves nowadays, and it'll actually come out really good quality if you educate yourself. And I think that's what's important to us, to like teach people, the tools and provide a space where we're talking to people who have done it, and then they can share what they know and give tips and advice. And, and that kind of is one of the questions I wanted to ask you. for people who are going to be listening, or aspiring entrepreneurs or creatives who might be listening today, what are some key advice and takeaways or tips would you give them to help them honor their gifts and turn those passions into thriving careers?
Yeah, I would say absolutely follow your joy. So I would suggest that anybody figure out, literally make a list of what are the things that light you up. If you didn't get paid, what are the things that make you excited? So I would start there, number one. And then number two, it would be following people who have done the things that you want to do. So who are the people who have, followed that path and followed that joy? How have they been able to do things? Kind of learn the pluses and minuses of those examples. You don't have to do it just like someone else, but it gives you an opportunity to see a framework of something that may have worked or not. I would also say number three, then do the research. Figure out, okay, how am I going to do this particular step? How am I going to move forward? So each and every moment of my career, and I've had a lot of iterations of my career, I've always studied the people who have come before me and then thought, like, how can I add my own special sauce? How can I be different? How can I continue to move the needle and then like create my own? And then I would say four, really examine and know that you can continue to grow. So not even just staying in one lane, but this one lane may get you to this other avenue, which may get you to another street. And so just continue to be open and explore. I think all of the things that I'm doing now are things that I thought about as a young person, but you never know that you're going to end up doing those. Or, even for example, you mentioned being a single mom or being a teen mom. My mom was a young mom, and I think that her determination to have me have a fulfilled life, I think really inspired me in general. So I would say for anyone out there, use your life. Don't be discouraged by the different things that have happened. Don't beat yourself up about different things. It's like, yes, that's special. That's part of your sauce. Today, like, here's where I've come and here's where I'm going. Here's my life experience. And now I want to be able to share that life experience or share how that has informed me, influenced me, inspired me. So use it all. So those would be my guidebook to moving into a life that, you really want to live and be excited about.
Use your testimony. I'm here for that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So then looking back on your journey thus far, what would you say to your younger self who was just starting out in this industry?
I would say to my younger self, have fun and be easy. I think that we live in a world where we're always second guessing ourselves. And I don't know that ever actually really changes, because anything you care about, you're going to be like, oh, did I do that right? Or did I prepare enough? Did I show up? Whatever the case may be. But I would say breathe easy and have a good time. I think being an early achiever, if you will, also comes with, staying up really late. And I think those things are great, right? I actually think those things are great because they teach you perseverance and all of that. But I also think there's a world where, you don't have to always be the first at everything. I think sometimes okay, let me enjoy the journey and have a good time. So that's what I would tell myself.
Lessons in the L sometimes, you know?
Now, I think this generation enjoys themselves too much, which is why sometimes I pause at saying that, because I'm like, I don't feel like I know young people like us, to be honest with you, who really got at it. Like I said, I want to do this, and they went out and got the bag. You know what I mean? So I always pause saying that, but definitely don't overthink it. You got it. You got all the cards.
I love that. My mom, may she rest in peace. My mom would always say something that has stuck with me my whole life. And it's kind of to that point. And it's, whatever God has for you is for you at the end of the day. Yeah. No one can take it from you. So, you don't have to try to be the best at every single thing. You don't have to stress yourself out, too much. You just can rest in the fact that however your life is supposed to play out, if there's a door that's supposed to be open, it'll be open. And if it's not, it's for a reason. And just trusting in that. And it helped me to really have that alignment and peace with any situation, and actually be able to go in confidently too.
Yeah.
So I love that point so much.
And also, what you just said makes me think of what my mom used to always say, like, if you do your best, God will do the rest.
Come on. That's another one.
I like that one.
That really is true. And your best doesn't always mean pulling all-nighters. Your best can mean put your best foot forward, and then trusting in that assignment being done and things like that. And also just always showing up at 100%. And so for me, especially now in the role that I have, I take it very seriously in terms of inspiring other people and also inspiring myself and making sure that I am joyful and everything. So it's one of the 4 agreements, like, do your best.
Yeah.
And so I think that just really stands out and resonates and has throughout my entire life.
And that takes rest too. A lot of people don't understand the power of rest. That's why our bodies are created the way they are. We're meant to rest, to rejuvenate. So many, I studied about the processes that happen during rest, and it's so powerful. We need it, so it's so important to have that balance in your life.
Yeah,
to your point.
Yeah, to your point, I feel like that's why just the promotional opportunity for Gospel Live was so moving to me, because after the production and post-production of Gospel Live, I took 3 weeks off for the first time in my life, where I only did fun things. And I also did a 21-day fast and prayer with my church. And that I have never done a fast in that way. And when I tell you, by the time we got on tour, I felt like I took off like a rocket. And a lot of that was the rest and the rejuvenation, the prayer, the meditation, just getting centered about, the intentions I had for the tour. Anything I ever do, I always write down my intentions. But that 3 weeks of rest really, I never knew truly like hitting stop and saying, hey, I'll circle back January 7th or whatever date I said. I'm so glad I did that, because I was able to just knock things out at the top of the year. It really, really set the pace for my year. So I would encourage anyone, even when you feel like, oh my gosh, 3 weeks feels so long. No, take a break and use that time for preparation. And I guarantee you, it's amazing.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm still learning. How to be better with that.
10 p.m. emails.
I'm still learning. I mean, there's typically reason, I'm usually home with the kids during the day, and I work, whatever. But I'm learning, and I think it's because after a lot of reflection, right, realizing that I was trying to do everything, right, instead of doing my best and letting God do the rest. I just was like, if I just send this one more thing, and since I have definitely surrendered to that, it's been pretty miraculous of the things that are coming to us versus having to chase and try to make things happen.
What God has for you.
Yeah. So
it's something you learn. It takes a while. It's easier said than done, which is why I wanted to acknowledge that 3 weeks. That can be a long time. So then it becomes, all right, what is 3 days? Start in increments. Right. So if you're gonna put some things down, you can't put everything down. If you put a few things down, or say all right, I'm gonna do something fun every day for 3 days. I'm gonna do something fun for 7 days, 10 days. It's all, I think, the same kind of principle of just honoring yourself and honoring your body and rejuvenating and making time that we're just not on E and beyond. Because sometimes folks are getting stuff done and they get home and they're a wreck. We don't want that either.
Yeah.
I'd actually rather you tell me you can't, listen, we got to postpone this, because I don't want anybody to go home and they feel like they're exhausted and then they can't give to themselves or their families. And that's something even for my shows, I do a pulse check with people hey, if this is too much, please let me know and we can reset, as opposed to you going. And then we get to production day and you falling apart. I don't want that.
Yeah. What's your bandwidth? Where are you at? Just doing a meter check.
But I also think that's a great sign of a great
leader.
Because I mean, I'm sure as you have as well, probably worked with people who definitely didn't do that. Or
Oh,
didn't
no,
ask for
for
your
sure not.
care, and they were like, well, do it.
Get to it.
So where can people find you on social media who might want to connect, or they're interested in your workshop, or they want to see your work?
Sure. So I would say go to KristenV.Carter.com, which is KristenVCarter.com, or you can hit me on Instagram at Kristen V. Carter. So all of my information lives on both of those, and you can find everything from speaking to podcasts to production. It's the best way. And I love IG, so you can always chat with me there for sure.
Well, thank you for sharing your incredible journey.
Thank you.
Your work is continuing to inspire and empower many, and we're grateful for your contributions to both the entertainment industry and to community empowerment. And for our listeners, be sure to check out Kristen's website at www.KristenV.Carter.com and explore the Trust Your Magic podcast and workshops. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories on the WarriorHER Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the WarriorHER Podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights from our incredible guests.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date. And remember, girls really do run the world.
'Cause even when I lose, I'm winning. 'Cause even when I lose, I'm winning. 'Cause even when I lose, I'm winning. 'Cause even when I lose, I don't ever take it now. I don't ever take it now. I don't ever take it now. I don't ever take it now.